a genre of fiction literature based on science. Good day to each and everyone. I am Angeline Esbintolan, BS Ed English 2. For today's video, we were going to talk about what is a science fiction. So, a science fiction often called sci-fi, whose content is imaginative but based in science. A science fiction relies heavily on scientific facts, theories, and principles as support for its settings, characters, themes, and plot lines. Even though science fiction is product of author's imagination, but at least it is plausible, which means plausible is it's possible to happen. Alright? Because it is possible to happen because it is the presence or the existence of science. So my question is, why does science fiction is different from fantasy when both are based on author's imagination? Alright, so, but before that, let's define first what is fantasy all about. So, a fantasy is a genre of literature that features magical and supernatural elements that do not exist in the world. Now, sci-fi is based in scientific fact that, as I said earlier, that there's a theories provided in it which we people thinks it will be possible to happen in the future, predicting the future. But however, fantasy, it is just a product of author's imagination, which are those stories featured magical world and supernatural elements, alright? Which do not exist to our world. Take note of that. So now, what are those examples of fantasy, such as Maleficent, if you're familiar with this one, of this Maleficent, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and many more. So, alright. However, we will not focus on that, but instead, let's talk about more the science fiction. Alright? Back then, during Middle Ages, the presence of science fiction was not particularly significant until the late 1800s. But because through the advent of technology over past 150 years, both writers and audiences came and rise because the development of technology, such as electricity, space exploration, medical advances, industrial growth, and so on. Alright? So basically, science and technology progress, so does the genre of science fiction. So this science and technology is the genre of science fiction. Now, I will give you an example. This is the short passage. So I will read it for you. So here goes on.
As the young girl opened her window, she could see the moons, Europa and Calypso, rising in the distance. A comet flashed by, followed by a trail of stardust illuminating the dark, endless space that surrounded the spacecraft, the only place she had ever known as a home. As she gazed at Jupiter, she dreamed of a life where she wasn't stuck orbiting a planet, but living on one. She envisioned stepping onto land, real land, like in the stories of Earth her father had told her about. She tried to imagine the taste of fresh air, the feel of a cool, salty ocean, and the sound of wind rustling through a tree's green leaves. But these were only fantasies, not memories. She had been born in the ship, and if they didn't find a new inhabitable planet soon, she would surely die there too.
Alright, so this short passage, the example is of this one, the characteristics that are common in science, right? In science fiction genre. First, it is set in the future, right? When humans no longer live on the earth. Second, it takes place on a spacecraft that is orbiting Jupiter. Its features feel scientific. Scientific information, Europa and Calypso are the two Jupiter's moons, right? That Jupiter's, and according to science, that Jupiter's has two moons, Calypso and Europa. So Jupiter planet made of gas, it would not be possible for humans to live there. So explaining why the ship is currently orbiting the planet rather than landing on it, because it is made with gas. Alright, so I hope you get it. So there are two types of science. So science fiction, which is hard and soft science fiction. So let's talk about hard science. Hard science fiction. So hard science fiction. So what is hard science fiction? So it is strictly follows scientific facts and principles. It is strongly focused in natural sciences like physics, astronomy, chemistry, astrophysics, etc. Interestingly, hard science fiction is offended by real scientists, and it has been known for making both accurate and inaccurate prediction of future events. Alright? So example, I will give you an example. The Martian. If you watch this one, because I already watched this, The Martian, during their mission in Mars, a team of astronauts is hit by unpredicted storm and happen to abort their mission. So that's why abort their mission and leave for Earth. So during the evacuation, one of the crew members, Mark Watney. So Mark Watney is hit by a projectile due to the storm and is thrown away. So the crew is forced to leave, thinking he died due to rupture in his space suit. So however, Mark survives and now has to find ways to make it still the next schedule, like he is in the Mars. So the Mars mission 4 years later with the remaining supplies. So being a botanist, so Mark is a botanist, he managed to cultivate food and survives by scavenging parts of previous missions, right? So NASA soon learns about him and attempts a daring, dangerous mission again to bring him back to the Earth. So most hard science fiction novels focus on taking the current rules of our universe, projecting them forward, imagining what Earth or another solar system might look like in the distant or near future. So now let's talk about soft science fiction this time. So what is science fiction? So science fiction is characterized by focus on social sciences like anthropology, sociology, psychology, and politics. So in other words, sciences involving human behavior. Alright, so soft sci-fi mainly address possible scientific consequences of human behavior. So take note of that one. So I will give you an example. This is the movie of Arnold Schwarzenegger, that Terminator. So this one is he is the Terminator, which means a robotic. So in the film, robots take over the world in the near future. So it is directed by the artificial intelligence Skynet, with its sole mission to completely annihilated humanity. Alright? So it develops android assassins called Terminators. So that is outwardly appear human. So the robotic outwardly appeared human. So that is the example, the Terminator. So this one, again, let's differentiate the sci-fi and soft. It is natural. So it is national, producing testable productions, performing cold controlled experiments. So that is the hard. So however, soft science fiction is social sciences, which is involving human behavior. So involving human behavior and hard fiction. So both are important when we are going to write a story, especially a genre is sci-fi or science fiction. So if you are familiar, I will give you an example. If you're familiar with the story of Taste of the Sky by Ventry Kennard. So I read this one in the Wattpad stories. So the story has soft sci-fi and hard sci-fi because it talks about politics, disasters, science, and technology. So I will give you some lines that it will trigger your curiosity if you haven't read this story. So if you haven't read this story yet. So this one.
I am a woman breathing the air with purpose, allowed to open your eyes, leading the way that truly touches the reality of sky. UASA is the science's home on Earth. It is the place where technology and human brain creates impossible things. It is a place where thousands of discoveries, yet with infinite questions left to be answered.
Alright? So that is one of the examples. So this is the last part, the importance of science fiction. What is the importance of science fiction? So science fiction turns real scientific theories because it is based on scientific science. It is possible even though it is based on imaginative of an authors. If it is based on imaginative of an authors, it is because science fiction suggests what could really happen in the future. To explore what could happen if certain events or circumstances came to be, or suggest consequences of technological and scientific advances and innovations. Alright? So, my topic is easy to understand. If you're a fan of watching movies involving science and technology, as well as reading such novels or stories. So I am hoping that you learned something in this video, in my topic. It's all about science fiction. So thank you so much for listening.